Water is such a beautiful element in our world. Looking at the vast oceans or the rapid mountain streams, it's refreshing to drink and to shower with. But an often overlooked part of water is its underground counterpart. Groundwater is an important asset in helping our rivers run and supplying our drinking water. Even more than that, it helps our irrigation, livestock, manufacturing, and so much more. However, now it is under threat from impacts of pollution. For example, in late November 2021, the lives of hundreds of families living on the Joint Base Pearl Harbor Hickam in Hawaii were interrupted from a fuel leakage into their drinking water well and groundwater. This would create health risks and force these families to move away from their homes as a result of groundwater contamination. What is groundwater pollution? Well, it essentially is when man-made products such as gasoline, oil, road salts, and chemicals get into the groundwater and cause it to become unsafe and unfit for human use. It does this through two main methods. Firstly, it does so by infiltrating through the soil or reaching an active recharge area. This can be anthropogenic, as I've mentioned previously, or even naturally occurring from natural deposits of salts or nutrients seeping into the soil that leach into groundwaters. Secondly, the contamination present in one aquifer can reach deeper aquifers through a phenomenon known as inter-aquifer leakage. Additionally, leakage from septic tanks and waste disposal sites can have the same effect, further introducing bacteria into the drinking water. As touched upon earlier, pollutants such as fuel, road salts, bacteria, viruses, medications, pesticides, fertilizers, and what we will be mainly discussing today is inter-aquifer leakage. In Hawaii, they currently face a high vulnerability to groundwater contamination from agrochemicals proliferating the water table. However, in Red Hill, the mismanagement of fuel storage led to the leakage of gallons of jet fuels into Red Hill, Hawaii's drinking water levels and groundwater. The pressing issue is that the water table of these infiltration points is several hundred meters into the ground. Essentially, once these volatile chemicals are allowed into the environment, they very slowly leach into the groundwater. As expert Mr. Smedes tells us, point pollutant sources are sources that can be easily identified and are confined spaces, hence something easily pointed to. In contrast, non-point pollution are sources that enter the environment from many different places at once, therefore making it difficult to point to one individual source. An example of a point pollutant source can be a septic tank leakage, and a non-point pollution source could be from urban runoff or from pesticides sprayed on ag fields. The source of groundwater contamination pollutants is mainly from non-point source pollution because it mainly stems from stormwater runoff in urban areas and runoff in agricultural regions. However, a point pollutant source, for example, can be the Red Hill fuel leak, where there are methods of identifying the point pollution source of its leakage. Some specific sources of this pollution, though, can be namely seen through industrial discharge, urban activities and its subsequent runoff, agriculture, waste disposal, and most importantly, leaking fuel tanks, as the improper storage of fuel such as petroleum reaches the systems of the drinking water wells and impacts groundwater. Environmentally, it harms aquatic and riparian plants and animals that depend on the regular water quality. Without the normal water quality, these animals suffer. Ecologically, there is a loss of aquatic biodiversity due to animals being unable to reside in certain areas from pollution. The contamination of fresh drinking water is another issue as a result of this. Additionally, economic impacts such as the increased treatment costs for removing nitrates and nitrites, decrease in property value from lack of clean water, and decreased farm yields are present due to contaminated water sources. Additionally, there is a loss in trust in home water quality, and people may buy and live off of water bottles or water deliveries instead. Additionally, groups of people have to move to newer areas with better assessed water qualities, and human health problems arise, such as diarrhea, reproductive problems, and nervous system disorders. In the case of Red Hill, 93,000 Navy water system users were impacted and had to relocate to temporary housing during their crisis. People were separated from their houses and their jobs. Despite being resolved in March 2022, there is still routine testing of the affected area. To observe concentration, scientists test pH for acidity, specific conductance to check, and total dissolved solids to observe for high amounts of particulates in the water. There are many other tests, but they are often specific to the contaminant, such as benzene, HEM, arsenic, and others. Some preventative measures that we can actually take is limiting our use of fertilizers and pesticides in our own lawns, and even safely storing and minimizing the use of chemicals, making sure that we don't dump chemicals down drains or on the ground directly. Some wider solutions are containing the contaminant to prevent migration or allowing the contaminant to naturally reduce following the implementation of an appropriate source control. But for a specific problem like Red Hill, governments need to take extreme action in making sure routine testing is a norm for all means of storage, no matter if it be fuel, human waste, or even chemical waste. More methods are pumping the water, treating it, and returning it to the aquifer so it's clean, and leaving the groundwater in place and treating either the water or the contaminant itself. In order to make sure our water quality is safe, our government has implemented the Federal Safe Drinking Water Act. Although not specific to the Red Hill fuel leak, in 1974, Congress passed the act and was designed to reduce the number of potential drinking water hazards, including improperly disposed of chemicals, animal waste, pesticides, human use, and many more. Specific to the Red Hill fuel leak can be seen in Hawaii State Water Code, where in 1987, Hawaii created the code to create a trustworthy foundation for its water rights. Looking specifically, the code creates an 8-point criteria for groundwater that analyzes groundwater's actual or threatened water quality degradation and analyzes whether the issue is pressing enough to make strong administrative action. Water, from the sources that we swim in, drink, and even the water at the bottom of our feet, is a very fundamental element to our lives. We need it to survive and to thrive. So just remember to be more mindful about the way you think before you throw your lab chemicals straight into the sink.